la 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 la. Hi guys, welcome back to Too Cool for Middle School. I've got my coffee here, I've got some questions from you, and we're gonna do a teaching Q&A session. I like to do these every so often just because I'm so like scatterbrained in real life and on my channel, so my content is kind of varied and it fluctuates a little bit, and then even if I go on like Instagram stories or whatever, I talk about a million different things, so it's kind of nice to just sit down every so often and talk about things that I know you want to hear about because I get the questions from you. I'm going to take a couple off of Instagram and a couple off of Teachers Connect. If you aren't on Teachers Connect already, go sign up. I've got a link that I will leave right down below, and it's a place where you can do exactly this. You can just post questions or post ideas or post like teaching articles that you'd like to get feedback on. You can post videos, anything like that where you just want to hear from other educators about a topic. They can comment and give you their like feedback or ideas about anything that you post. So it's a really good place to look for question ideas. You guys, I think my calendar says September. Yeah, it does. Okay, I'm just gonna cover that with my face. This little corner of the apartment used to just be like my place where I would come and write and read and do my work, but I rarely get to be in here anymore, so my stack of books from my last book haul, I think, is right over there. And my calendar still says September, so okay, it's November. Anyway, let's take a couple of questions from Teachers Connect. This one says, I'm having a hard time finding fun and engaging ways to teach grammar, parts of speech, to my 5th graders. They are struggling with these skills, which they have done in the past, and find learning it boring. Does anyone have any thought or ideas to make it more engaging? Okay, so I had some ideas, but actually some other people wrote down some really good ideas too. Somebody said using like task cards instead of worksheets and maybe making like stations with those. I said vocabulary, of course, because I love using vocabulary to teach grammar. Someone else said using like Nearpod or Kahoot. They definitely like to turn things into games. I always love using like Kahoot or Quizlet. Oh, my friend Jennifer said grammar surgery, and she listed a link where they do some kind of like a activity where they're grammar surgeons. That's a really good idea. And she also said like Brain Pop, Kahoot, YouTube. So just in one post, people got some really exciting ideas, and I agree with all of those. I didn't even think of some of those things, but yeah, that's good. Another question says, I will be completing my final internship next semester and will likely receive a full-time position in April because our district is short on teachers. Hearing that a lot of districts are having teacher shortages. Not mine, but other places. Any tips for walking into a classroom so late in the year? What would you worry about doing, and what would you wait to do until next school year? That's good that that's what she's thinking about. So let's see, some of the suggestions. There's a blog post, because you can add like links or whatever, from Cult of Pedagogy. I love Jennifer Gonzalez from Cult of Pedagogy, so I'm sure whatever she says is a great way to go. I love her. This girl said that she also did that, replacing somebody who was out on maternity leave. Okay, so then for the first couple of days, she had them like ask her questions about like her favorite foods, holiday, what she had for breakfast, and she asked them as well. So just like getting to know the students, because it is the middle of the school year and you didn't get the beginning of the school year to do that. So I think that's also a really good idea. This one I hear a lot also, like, how did you decide which grade level you want to teach? I love English, but I'm afraid of high school and have more experience in elementary. In California, you have to like pre-decide, like if you want to teach kindergarten, or I guess TK through 6th grade, you get one credential that covers all of the subjects. But then if you want to teach, it overlaps, because some 6th graders go to middle school and some are in an elementary school. So then 6th through 12th, you would get a single subject credential and you would just choose your content area. So I was definitely more passionate about content area than teaching elementary. So I have a social studies credential, an English credential, and a PE credential. And I actually like started off teaching high school and I loved it, but I don't think there's as much choice in like which particular grade level you teach as people think. You just apply for whatever's open. You take what you can get. And then even if you start at a school in a specific grade level, they might move you around. I have never taught the same exact thing or the same combination of things for 2 years in a row ever. There are always changes that the school has to make just based on enrollment and, you know, if somebody retires or if you get new teachers or whatever. So you always have to be flexible. So, I mean, you can like have a goal in mind, a specific grade or subject you want to teach, but keep in mind that you're going to have to be open to whatever works with the job openings that are available around you. So don't forget to jump on Teachers Connect and try to make some connections with teachers over there. And in the meantime, I'm gonna go through some of these Instagram questions. There are quite a few. Oh no. I'll do as many as I can though. So the first one is, what would you tell your first year teacher self? I have a whole video about this actually, entitled like what we would tell our first year teacher selves. I did it with Miss Tierney. Where has she been? I think she was doing her master's and kind of slowed down on her channel. I miss her, but anyway, I think some of the things that I said in that video were just to stand up for myself, as I did. I didn't really have a problem with that, but still I would tell myself that, like, that you're doing the right thing by standing up for yourself, and do whatever you can to save money. Tips for young teachers in landing your first teaching job. It's always been difficult for me to find jobs. Hi! It's so hard for him to understand that this is like, that I'm doing something right now. Doesn't look like it. Okay, tips for young teachers in landing your first teaching job. For me, it's always been difficult to find teaching jobs. They just aren't available very often around this area. So you just scour EdJoin for an entire summer. Like, there are only a few months of the year where you can apply for teaching jobs. For the most part, they're only available in like the late spring, early summer. So you dedicate your whole entire life to working on your resume, getting your EdJoin profile updated or whatever website it is that you use in your area. And you know that your entire year's salary is dependent upon you getting a job right now. So you just put everything you've got into it and you do whatever you have to do to make it to those interviews and to get those applications in, and you're just really vigilant. What is your admin's opinion of your teaching style? I'm struggling because my admin does not approve of my teaching style. Oh, well. They love it. They love to see us do things that are outside of the box. They love for us to collaborate. They love for us to use technology. They love for us to really focus on like teaching the whole child and incorporate like community circles and restorative circles and restorative practices. And yeah, I love my admin. They're very supportive. How do you feel you are doing enough for your students? Like, how do I know that like I'm doing enough for my students? I work my butt off every day. I'm always confident that I'm doing enough for my students. I know that I'm meeting the standards, I'm covering my content, and I am keeping my students' goals and skills and struggles in mind all the time. How did you get better as a teacher in time? What areas do you feel like you've improved in? I also have a video called Getting Better as a Teacher, or something to that effect. And I feel like an area that I've improved in is like not needing to control my students as much. Like when I was a newer teacher, I really felt like it was important that I had a lot of control in the classroom, and I was very like no nonsense, and I think that I have become more compassionate and more empathetic towards my students, and I look more now for the root of their behaviors, and I don't just address the behavior but like also what's behind it. So I feel like I've improved in that area quite a bit. Tips for teaching inclusion and SJ, like social justice, to kids in an all-white school with super Republican parents. I think it's just important to keep in mind that white Americans have a culture too, and they have a racial identity too, and a lot of times we kind of gloss over that and act like anything pertaining to culture or race doesn't apply to white people, and that is not true. Sometimes white people are like, oh, I'm just nothing, I'm just white. But that really reflects our level of privilege, that like whatever we do is just the default and just normal. Never has this child been louder than when I tried to film a video. So yeah, anyway, that is my answer. One book that I would suggest is Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? I love that book. I don't know if the title is like really captures everything that it's about. I think that it's very useful for teachers who teach white students to read that book and just learn more about like the psychological development of a racial identity. because most white kids just get to opt out of that, and there's a missing link in their conception of their own identity and of other identities, and it's harder for them to understand issues of race when they don't understand their own. So I would definitely suggest that book. What is your advice for someone that loves teaching but feels burnt out? I think so many teachers start to feel burnt out because there are just so many demands placed upon us, and a lot of times there just isn't enough time in the day to do everything that we need to do. But this is a very tough skill in life in general, but I would just say to prioritize. Just prioritize what it is that you need to do every day in class, and then what you need to do every day outside of school in order to take care of yourself, because I know many teachers who love what they do and enjoy teaching, but it really does take its toll. Tips for teachers who are just starting out. I would actually say the same thing, to prioritize your routines and your kind of systems for doing things, how you want to have kids turn things in, and how you want to do grading, what time of your day you can do grading and when you can do planning. It's something that I'm still struggling with and dealing with now. So know that it can be tough to get those things sorted out, but just to help yourself at the beginning of the year, and when you're a new teacher, just try to stick to routines as much as you can, but also know if those routines aren't working, it's fine to change them in the middle of the school year. And maybe you had a system of doing something with your students and it's not really working for them, it's not really working for you, just change it. That is totally fine. And students tend to really appreciate that when you admit that something isn't going well and it's not really serving them how it should, so you're open to changing things. And sometimes getting advice from them helps as well. What is your favorite topic / unit / writing skill to teach? One of my favorite units to teach that I don't get to do this year is Farewell to Manzanar. I love teaching that novel to 6th graders because I get to bring in so much history around it. This year with my 8th grade English students, I'm going to do a Dear Evan Hansen unit. I haven't completely planned it all out yet, but I've got ideas in my mind and some of them are formed. So after I teach it to my students, I will make it available on Teachers Pay Teachers, because I'm really excited about doing it, and I love musicals, and I love the story of Dear Evan Hansen, and I love all the themes within it and how many skills you can teach with it. So very excited about that. Best classroom management strategies. I feel like my classroom management strategy in general is just to keep students busy and engaged so they don't have time to mess around. This year I've been doing a lot of incentives with just raffle tickets. If you finish and you get a good grade on something, you get a raffle ticket and you get to pick a prize right then and there. One nice thing about middle school and high school, even though their behavior can be really scary, people are afraid to teach those grades, is that you only have them for I have them for 45 minutes. So if you can keep them engaged and keep them busy and working and on task for 45 minutes, which is tough, but if you can do that, then they leave and you start with a new group and you're okay. My husband and I always say that you live and die by your transitions. So, that time when you're passing out paper or setting something up or just turning on a video or moving from one thing to the other, that's where you really lose kids and where misbehavior tends to happen. So really plan out your transitions well. I imagine in elementary school that's a lot more important because you have more transitions throughout your day. See, how do you handle students or families who have very different political views than you? I don't really know my students or their families' political views, and they don't really know mine either. Even though I talk a lot about politics and policy and structures and systems and racism in my classroom, we talk about it through the lens of the content, and it's not something where anyone really gets to preach their values. The audience of my Instagram and YouTube channel is different than my student audience. My focus here and my focus on Instagram is other teachers, and they are full-grown adults who, if they're a teacher, they have quite a bit of education and they are able to hear and discuss different political and ideological and moral ideas. And with students, I don't expect them to have all of those same skills, but I teach them to assess information and to think critically about different ideas and different topics. So unless you know me personally or are a very avid Instagram or YouTube follower, Most people don't know my political ideas, so that's not really an issue. Thoughts on equity sticks / making students participate who are shy or disruptive. Disruptive? Okay, I feel like that's something different, but I don't really use equity sticks because I teach middle school, but I had some students talking about this the other day and saying how annoying it was when they're the only one not raising their hand and everyone else is raising their hand and the teacher calls on them. I was like, well, that's easy to fix. Just raise your hand and then they won't call on you. I always want to hear from everybody, but I feel like there should be a little bit more of like a clear expectation ahead of time about who I'm going to call on if it's going to be like something where they do have to talk in front of the class. So there are definitely just, like conversations that we'll have in class, and I'll, just kind of randomly ask, oh, does anybody know what this is? Okay. And then I just call on who's ever raising their hand. But sometimes we'll have like, okay, a group share out. And one thing that I like to do is I say, okay, everybody point at this guy. They point at this guy, say there's like a group of 4. I'm like, now point to the person who is your speaker. And then whoever has the most fingers pointing at them, they're the one that gets to speak. But then they still have like a few more minutes where they all get to brainstorm before they share out for their group. So giving people like lead up time and stuff is good. How do you make sure you follow through with IEP accommodations / modifications in Gen Ed? We have a really great special ed team at our school, and the special ed teachers do mostly push-in classes, and they meet with us quite a bit. And they just check in with us, and I really appreciate that. And at the beginning of the year, the special ed teachers all take a day, which is like so annoying for them. I'm sure they have to take so many days for like IEP meetings and everything, but they take one for us, and on our prep we go and meet with them and talk to them about every single student who we have in our classes that has an IEP, and they explain a little bit about their accommodations. Hi. And they give us a little printout, and we're expected to follow those accommodations because that's the law. But it definitely helps when special ed and general ed teachers communicate quite a bit and work together quite a bit. I can't even tell you how many times I've stopped and started this video to go take care of Jensen. What is some good advice for teachers who are in school while teaching? I was getting my master's degree for the first 4 years of my teaching career, and I also have a video about that. You guys know I have like 300 videos on my channel, right? Like more than 300 videos. So almost everything that people ask me, I already have a video on, which is really nice because then I can just send them a link, and it gives much more information than I could just like in a DM or something. But it's so hard, but you've just gotta get through it and be done with it and just like suffer for a while. My husband currently is teaching and doing his master's degree, and he just doesn't sleep. Like he just doesn't get enough sleep and does work all the time, and I am left to take care of the baby all the time. And it's just a stage, and he's gonna get a raise when he's done, and that's gonna be nice, and he's never gonna have to go to school again when he's done. So you just have to keep like the end goal in mind even while it sucks. How do you deal with negativity in the classroom? Sometimes the negativity is from me, and I just have to like look at my pictures of Jensen, or we say our Lin-Manuel Miranda quote every morning, or I just like have some coffee. I have a coffee maker in my room. Did you know that? I have a French press because when I start to feel myself getting tired and grouchy, I have to make myself a cup of coffee, and then that really helps because I don't like to be grouchy around my students. They've got like weird hormone things going on, so they can be grouchy sometimes, although I just try to like tease them out of it and see if that helps. But yeah, I need coffee to be ungrouchy. How can I best prepare for middle school parent-teacher conferences? I'm glad you asked. I think that the student should always be there. I don't know what the point of a conference without the student is. My mind is always blown when parents show up and I'm like, where's your kid? Because we're talking about them, and the changes that have to be made are with them. So for one, make it clear that the student needs to come, and have paperwork that the student fills out. I think I have, I don't know if they're on my Teachers Pay Teachers store, but I've seen other people with them. So maybe Google like self-led student conferences, or like self-led parent-teacher student conferences or something like that, because the students should be filling out a checklist of like, do they have their homework done? Do they have missing assignments? Is it because they don't understand the assignment, or is it because they lose the assignment? How well do they understand instructions? How much effort are they putting in? Because you can't really move forward until you know those things about the student. So I would have them do that ahead of time, or right at the beginning of the meeting, and then move ahead with your conversation from there, and really, you know, make it clear to the parents that you are trying to help this student become a self-directed learner and take responsibility of their own learning. And of course, you are there to support them every single day. That is your job. That's what you live for. But the student needs to take control of their own learning as well. And we're going to help them do that together. How to get the most out of my teaching program. Make friends in your teaching program and talk with them and go out to coffee with them after class. And if you feel comfortable, document a lot of things. Take pictures of things, make, you know, little videos about things or something so that you can look back. Start a blog. Do something so that you're reflecting on what you're learning often. How do you handle students who never turn in classwork or homework? For one, I give them a 0. That's the first step. And then that gives me data. Like sometimes students freak out over zeros, but I'm like, well, I need to be able to see, because I have 210 students, like who has zeros, who's not getting things in, and it needs to reflect in your grade pretty immediately so that they also realize that they are missing things. And then I just hound those students. To be honest, I am very, very lucky. I work at a really great school and there aren't too many students that I have to hound. There's like several per class, several per period, which is pretty much nothing. So I just hound those students and keep giving them new worksheets or whatever until they get it done. And if they don't, they don't. And I usually start with them, like hounding them first before I call their parents, but also just like to cover myself. I need their parents to be aware as well, but at this level, especially like with my 8th graders, they're making their own choices and they deal with their own consequences. And I'm here to support them and help them in any way that I possibly can, but it comes down to them doing their own work or not doing their own work. I know that it's really different in elementary, but for me, this is kind of the attitude that I have to adopt. How do you establish relationships with your students without being seen as a friend? We do community circles, which I like, and I learn a lot about them through those. Just listen to their stories, you know, ask about like what's on their binder, if it's like a picture, or now, I mean, they have a binder less often and just like a, you know, Chromebook background with like BTS on it or something, and just ask about the things that they're interested in. Ask about their sweatshirt if it has some kind of like an event or something on it, like what was that from. If they're involved in clubs or sports teams or like drama or whatever, try to show up to their stuff and support them. But all of those are in the role of a teacher. It's okay if they trust you like as a friend, but I think I'm less in danger of this now that I'm older. Like when I first started teaching and I had older kids, they might have seen me more as a friend, but now I'm like your mom. I'm not afraid that you think I'm your friend. How do you have parents' permission to put your students on social media? I wrote a letter to parents explaining what I do here on YouTube and on Instagram and what my purpose is and how I love to celebrate student achievements and celebrate student learning and how I would love to share that with other teachers. And so I sent that letter to my principal to make sure that she approved it, and then we both sent it to the district office to make sure that they approved it, and then we sent that out to parents and they signed it, as well as the students, to give permission for them to be on like my Instagram or YouTube, because even though we already had their permission to be on like Twitter and emails and newsletters and stuff, I still felt like it was a little bit different than like the Too Cool for Middle School side of things. So I did get their like expressed written permission from the student and the parent, and there's some kids that I didn't get it from, so I don't show them. So just be very like open and honest with what you are doing and why you want to show them on your Instagram or your channel or whatever. And I also told them, and I really stick by this, like this won't interfere with class time and it will not affect grades at all. Like I do not offer extra credit to be in a YouTube video or like be on Instagram or anything. Like it doesn't affect their grades or their class time whatsoever. And I think that was important to make clear. Whew, we've got a lot. Any advice for someone planning on being a teacher, like getting through college? Just keep that angle in mind, man. How do I motivate a student who gets angry when doing a non-preferred activity? Ugh. I just always try to make them think that they are choosing what they want. Like that's what I try to do with Jensen too, you know? And I'm really big on like, you make the choice and then you either like face the natural consequence of something like getting a 0 or whatever, or you are rewarded, and like really, really try to praise them when they make the right choice and really reinforce the positive behaviors. Do you believe in / use classroom incentives for good behavior? I'm honestly not a big like classroom incentive person. I don't do like a classroom economy or like goals that my class works towards or anything like that, because I just really believe in like intrinsic motivation, and I don't really love setting up a lot of extrinsic rewards, but we'll do like mini ones here and there, like raffle tickets and stuff. But a lot of my philosophy is just like, you make the right choice because that's the right choice, and it's going to benefit you in the long run, and it's going to benefit everyone around you, and we'll all be happier. But you can choose to make the wrong choice if you want. Oh, this video is going to get so long. Okay. Do some of your classes get left behind in planning and grading, and how do you get caught up? You've been spying on me in class. Yes, they definitely do. There are times when I'm focused more on my history classes or more on my English classes, and the other ones get left behind a little bit. It's just a bummer, but that's how it goes. What novels do you teach, and for what grade? Well, in the past I taught 6th grade English, and we did Farewell to Manzanar and Bud Not Buddy, and also Wonder, actually. So I loved teaching all 3 of those. And then this year, we're doing a little bit of Dear Evan Hansen, obviously not teaching the whole novel, but in the spring we're going to do Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, and then we do like the Anne Frank play. We did that last year, and I feel like that was an entire novel. It took forever. I didn't realize it was so long. How do you avoid teacher guilt when you just can't possibly do everything? I just embrace the teacher guilt. I just know that I can't do everything. I just drink some tea, eat some ice cream, read a book. I'm just not very easily ruffled, you know? I'm not all that easily guilted. Like, I know that I'm doing my very best, and I know that there are just always going to be people disappointed with me. Like, there are always going to be students who I haven't, you know, put enough time into, and there are always going to be like people who I've not responded to on Instagram, and friends who I haven't called, you know, recently enough, and family that I haven't made plans with yet. Like, there's always going to be things I should have done, and I just do what I can. I know that my intentions are good, and I try to keep up with everything, but I just hope that people have grace with me, and I try to extend that same grace to other people, and recognize that we're all busy, we're all working hard, we're all trying our best. Okay, Jensen, we have a couple more questions left. What should we say? Any advice for student teaching or taking certification tests? Okay, so right now I'm gonna feel a little bit guilty that I can't get to everyone else's questions, but this kid is not going to let me finish. We're just cutting it off here. We're done. I've done everything that I can do, and this is how life goes. And who knows when I will have time to get this edited. And don't touch my coffee. Alright, you guys, thank you so much for all your questions. Go check out Teachers Connect. We are done. We are done here. Oh my gosh. Okay.